Well, welcome to another chat with Tim. Today we're going to do the final talk on our little boundaries series, looking at just very practical tools on how to know where to set a boundary. And today I want to basically end with how do I talk about it? How do I speak, ask? That becomes so important. So it's not just where you set the boundary to make sure it's healthy, but it's how you go about talking about it when you do have to talk about it. And so I want to give you a bunch of principles that are very important when it comes to talking to somebody else about a boundary. Number one is use I language, I feel. So just for an example, let's say that you go to a social setting with your partner. And as soon as you get to the social setting, your partner spends the whole evening talking to everybody else, never checks in with you, never comes to see how you're doing. They just love being in that social environment and with all these people, and they just take full advantage of meeting as many people as possible. But you're hurt. And so you could go to them at the end of that and go, you were neglecting me. You don't care about me. You could accuse them of all kinds of things. But that would probably get them defensive. And so it might be better to go to them and say, when we were at that social setting, when you spent all your time with everybody else and never checked in with me, never gave me any attention at all, it made me feel that you don't care about me, that I don't matter to you, that I'm an inconvenience to you. So they're going to respond to that, and you're going to hopefully come to some greater understanding. But then you get beyond that, and now it's time to just present your boundary. And you can say, the next time we go to a social setting, it would mean so much to me if you would check in with me periodically throughout the evening just to see how I'm doing, to chat briefly. I don't mind that you're an extrovert wanting to talk to as many people as possible, but it's just important to me that I know that I still matter and that you're thinking of me. So you're getting beyond trying to accuse a person to say that your behavior made me feel this way, and I don't like that feeling, and I think maybe there's something we can do. The second one to me is just massive, and that is respect. And this goes both ways. So whenever you set a boundary, be respectful. And this is important for people from complex trauma because often they weren't allowed to set boundaries. And so the only way they could set a boundary was they had to get themselves really angry. They had to close their heart, be cruel. They had to take shots at the other person to make them cower a little bit. And so that was the environment of setting boundaries. And then when others would set boundaries with them, there was often a disrespect, a making them feel bad, less than, that they were failed, all of those various things. And so the setting of boundaries in their history has never been done respectfully. It's always had an element of disrespect. And so to me, that always undermines the effective setting of boundaries. So be determined that I'm going to set this boundary, but I'm not going to do it out of anger, not going to do it with cruelty, not going to take shots. I will be respectful. But beyond that, if the other person becomes disrespectful, you don't have to put up with it. You can say, if you're going to talk to me that way, then I'm going to be hanging up the phone. I'm going to be walking out of the room, or I'm going to give you a 10-minute break so you can cool down, but we're not going to have this type of conversation. And so it's really understanding that people won't respect you if you don't respect yourself. And they're not going to treat you with respect if you don't require it. And so when you set boundaries, if people don't like it, they're often going to try to lash out at you and hurt you and make you feel bad for setting that boundary with them. And that's where you have to require that they be respectful to you. So the whole point in you setting the boundary with them respectfully is you're not saying they're bad. You're not trying to control them. You're just saying, this is what I need. And if they react to that in a negative way, That's on them. You don't have to try to fix it, and you don't have to put up with any abusive, disrespectful behavior. That goes to the third point, and that is really work to make sure that you stay regulated. So you set a boundary, they get dysregulated, they start to lash out, they're triggered. It's very easy at that moment for you to get triggered and get dysregulated, and now you want to lash out. So they've responded to your boundary by going to fight mode. The tendency from your past is that, okay, they're fighting me, now I have to fight them. I got to beat them. I got to defeat them. I got to be more nasty, more intimidating, more powerful than them. So I'm going to go to fight mode. And you get dysregulated. That just destroys any attempt at setting a boundary that's going to be enforced. So if you find yourself triggered and getting dysregulated, it's okay for you to say, could we take a little break here? I need to just go and get a breath of fresh air, calm myself down, and then I'll come back and talk about this further. So sometimes they're going to say, oh, you're avoiding the conversation. You're not planning to resolve this. No, that's not your intent at all. You plan to resolve it, but you know it can't be resolved if you're dysregulated. So you need to calm yourself down, get yourself grounded, get yourself back to your cortex so that you can have a calm discussion. That's the only way it's going to be resolved well. So when you go in to setting a boundary with a person, often it's helpful to take a couple deep breaths, pay attention to your body, notice kind of how you're feeling just so that you're aware, and then go in as calmly as possible. And if you start to notice that you're getting dysregulated, take a break. The next one, and this is more close relationships where you would use this, but it's inviting collaboration when possible. And so we've talked about whenever you're setting a boundary or asking to set a boundary that involves somebody else's space, somebody else's time, somebody else's activities, there's an element where you have to negotiate it. So I'd like to be able to have friends over this weekend. Would that be okay since we share the same apartment? Or you are in a relationship living with somebody and you're a morning person, they're a night person. So I like to get up early but have a quiet morning and do all of my personal activities. I don't like to have you in the same room eating your breakfast, making your coffee. Can we figure out something? So what you're doing is recognizing we both have needs, and I want to be sensitive to both of our needs and try to make sure both of our needs get met. And I think if we talk about this, we can find a solution where my needs are met and your needs are met. And whenever you're in a close relationship, this is common. And so the danger is for people to, oh, I don't want conflict, or the other person might just, well, I'm going to do it my way, and then I don't know where to go from there. So you just withdraw, you start to get a resentment, you shut down, or you just do it anyways, and now you've got animosity between the two of you. And so it's really as respectful, openly, let's try to find a solution that works for both of us. So that becomes a very important thing in close relationships. That means the next one, that you have to be ready for compromise, but without abandoning yourself. So let's say you are an introvert and you need lots of alone time. You work with people all day, you get home, you want some alone time, but that causes your spouse to then feel rejected. They feel like you don't want to spend time with them. So you now have a problem in the relationship. It's a real problem. How do you resolve it? So you don't just say, okay, I'll give up my alone time and do whatever you want, because that would be abandoning yourself. So you have to find a way to go, I still need quite a bit of alone time, but I need to connect with you. So let's work out a way where I connect with you in a very meaningful, deep way where we have a really good time together. Then would it be okay if I can go and just relax for an hour or so, you do your own thing. You're working to find a solution that's going to involve some compromise without abandoning your core needs. I need alone time, but we need together time. Those are the two competing needs right now. But the together time has to have some true connection. So it doesn't have to be the whole evening. My alone time doesn't have to be the whole evening. Let's find a solution. Then once you got a boundary decided on, you've explained it, but now you have to enforce it. And this is where many people struggle. It's easier to set a boundary than to enforce a boundary. You can say to your mom, don't call me 5 times a day, or you can say to your mom, I can only talk once a week. But then mom says, okay. But then she still calls you 3-4 times a day. She still wants to see you 3-4 times a week. Now you have to enforce it. So it sounded like they were cooperating with your original thing, but they're finding all kinds of exceptions and excuses to violate the boundary that you have set. So you have to now enforce it, or else the boundary means absolutely nothing. It will go back to the way that it used to be. And so this is where, to me, you have to still be respectful but firm. Don't go to harsh. Don't go to starting to be disrespectful, just starting to take shots. Just, okay, I understand this is the way we've done it in the past, but this is the way it has to be now. And I'm asking you to respect it. If you call, I'm not going to answer. This is the way it's going to be. You gently but firmly stick to the boundary until they start to accept it. Once they do, some of that will disappear. But be ready for a period of time where they're going to try to manipulate you back to the old boundary. And you just have to gently but firmly stick to your guns, refuse, don't fall for all the hooks that they use to hook you back to the old way. And this is very challenging, can be exasperating at times, but if you stick to your guns, eventually they get it. So the next one is so important, is when you set a boundary that's changing the dynamics of how the relationship used to be, expect discomfort. But be aware that when your brain goes to experiencing discomfort, it often thinks that there's going to be disaster. It goes to worst case scenario. So you tell your mom you can only see her once a week. Then what happens after that? You feel guilty. After all, it is your mom, blah, blah, blah. And you go through all of that. So you start to think, I did something wrong. Then that takes you to anxiety. That takes you to some shame. That takes you to some fear about how mom's thinking, her hurt feelings, whatever. So now that new boundary has put you in a lot of uncomfortable emotions. So that's where your brain then wants to jump to, oh, something terrible is going to happen. Mom is going to disown me, whatever. Expect that. That is normal. Whenever your old normal has been unhealthy, but it's still your normal, and you try to get to a healthy relationship, that feels not normal. It feels uncomfortable. Your brain doesn't like that. It creates emotions because you're changing things. And those emotions are negative. Fear, anxiety, shame, guilt, all of those things. Understand that when you go from an unhealthy normal, that was your normal, to a healthy normal, it takes several months before that new normal starts to feel normal. And so you have to be able to sit in some uncomfortable emotions. The next one is something you're going to do after a period of time internally yourself at first, and you may do it afterwards in dialogue with the person you set a boundary with, and that is that you evaluate it. You revisit it and assess, was this the right boundary? Has it accomplished what I was hoping? Was it too severe? Did I maybe go too harsh and push them too far away? Should I relax the boundary a little bit? Or should I take it even farther because obviously it wasn't far enough? So there's going to be an assessing period of time where you evaluate whether that boundary was the right one. Sometimes you can then include the other person in the discussion around that. So here's what can happen. Sometimes, let's say you set a boundary with a person that they've been calling you. They keep trying to push themselves into your life. And so you just say, hey, don't call me. If I want to meet with you and have contact with you, I will initiate that. But I won't be responding to your texts, your emails, your phone calls, because you've abused that. You've continually tried to ingratiate yourself to me, push yourself into my life. So you set a severe boundary. Let's say they respect it. And so after 6 months, you go, okay, maybe that was too severe. I'll let them back in a little bit. I'll let them call me and I'll respond to their texts. And so you tell them that, okay, you've respected my boundary, appreciate it. We can talk a little bit now. What can happen is the person can think, oh, good, we are going to go back to the original boundary because I've been a good person. So now they trust me. Now they think I'm safe. So now I can go back and start calling them more, etc. And then the person basically realizes, oh, I relaxed the boundary a little bit. Now they're abusing that. I got to push it out severely again. So this adjusting of boundaries, evaluating, is a very tricky thing that might require a couple of attempts to get to the place where you feel very comfortable that this is a good boundary that I can stick with. The next one is the goal in boundaries is to practice repair, not to reach perfection. And so basically it means that you don't always get the boundary right the first time. And so you may set a boundary, but then you go, oh, okay, I got to adjust it. So I need to make some repairs. So you might, let's say, overshare a little bit, or you might say yes too quickly, or you might snap and get angry when you really wanted to say no. So your intent to share was good, but you overshared. Your intent to be kind and caring was good, but you said yes too often. And so what you begin to realize is, okay, I set a boundary here. I got the right intention. I just need to pull back a little bit and change it a little bit, repair it. And so you can go to a person and say, you know what? I said yes to you, but I realized in thinking about it, I was feeling pressured. I was just not wanting to disappoint anybody. But as I thought about it, I need to change that to a no. And so you are not just ignoring your yes. You're not just going to say, oh, who cares what I said? I'm not going to do it, and hurt a lot of people. You're trying to repair that your boundary had the right intent, but it missed something. The next one is, I think, so important for people, and that is practice self-compassion. So if you were to look at the boundaries you have set in your relationships, look for the reality that you might be more hard on yourself and lenient on the other person. You might deny your needs more and give in to their wishes and needs more. And so there's an imbalance. You just tend to make the sacrifices and take care of them. It's not a 50-50 two-way street. And what you begin to realize is the reason you do that is because you've always been hard on yourself. You've always made the sacrifices. Your needs don't matter as much as other people's needs are. You haven't learned to really truly love yourself, to be compassionate to yourself. It's not just meeting your needs and knowing what your needs are. It's learning that my needs matter just as much as anybody else's. And so I have to develop a self-compassion that enables me to stand up for my needs. That is so important when you get to core stuff underneath the setting of boundaries. The final one is building healthy boundaries. Learning how to do all of this work happens only with safe relationships, with safe people. If you try to set boundaries with parents or a partner who are narcissists, who aren't willing to change, who aren't willing to compromise, who think they're better than you, who are always disrespectful, you can use all these tools and they're not going to work. That's where you have to just then enforce the boundary without discussion. But if you want to learn how to negotiate boundaries, how to make compromises without abandoning yourself, how to learn to discuss and find solutions together, that has to be with safe people who will respect you as much as you respect them. Then you're going to learn how to set boundaries well. So remember that. So again, how do you know if it's a safe person? Basically, it's a person who can hear you say no, but they still remain kind and respectful to you. It's a person who asks you about stuff and don't just assume they know what's best for you or assume the way you're thinking. It's a person who respects your decisions, who doesn't guilt trip you for having needs, for stating what you need. It's a person who offers empathy, who sees you and hears you, who makes space for you and doesn't try to control you, doesn't try to fix you to suit them. Those are the kind of people that you will benefit from as you grow in building healthy boundaries. So that's the end of our little boundary series. Again, hope that was helpful just in very practical terms in learning how to talk about boundaries.